We are so excited to have What Moves Her here in the Triad, and we are happy to say that this is the first of many events to come to the many cities that we serve in the Triad. Today we have a very special guest. Sitting next to me is the majority owner and managing partner of Carolina Core FC, the Triad Business Journal 2023 Power Player, and High Point Central Varsity Soccer Team's Most Improved Player of 2003.
That's my only soccer accolade.
I also learned a couple days ago that you're real estate licensed.
Yeah.
So you get to feel our pain when we have to go to continuing education to keep that active.
Brutal.
Megan is an inspiration to all current and future women in business. She has performed many senior roles at influential local organizations, including the High Point Chamber of Commerce and Condon Family Foundation. Megan is now a forefront leader in the very special project that has brought an MLS Next Pro soccer team to the Triad. As announced last week, Coldwell Banker Advantage is extremely excited to be the residential real estate partner of Carolina Core FC. Having this organization here means that we will all benefit from a sense of togetherness, joy, and progress in the area, and we are truly privileged to be involved with it. So thank you so much for being here today, Megan.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And yes, congratulations to each of you for continuing your education for your real estate license, because it is a lot. I've got my real estate license back I did the pre-licensing in 2019, passed the test in 2020, found out I was pregnant with twins, so that kind of changed my trajectory. I haven't used it, but all the things that you guys have to remember to make a sale go smoothly is incredible, so I just commend you guys for doing great work and being a part of a really fantastic firm.
Thank you for that. It's a certain type of superhero to be a real estate agent. That's how I like to think of it. So going back to Carolina Core and our partnership with them, from the very start when we first started coordinating the details of the partnership, we knew that we wanted to make today happen. When we brought up the What Moves Her series, it was just kind of a given to invite you to come over and talk to us today. The topics we'll cover today are all about how you progress through your career and the skill set that you embrace to make this happen. What I learned when I was preparing this talk is that you've been on a trajectory of success since you were a Girl Scout, earning the silver and gold awards. So it's evident that this support for the community is something that has been with you since a very early age. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to take action on something you believed in as a younger girl?
Oh my gosh. So my mom has always been one of my biggest sources of inspiration. I mean, she worked basically in the home, but anytime she had free time, she was volunteering or supporting other women. She was my Girl Scout leader along with Catherine Jones, if you know her. They both were really powerful women, but they just encouraged us to kind of forge our own path. And what's interesting about Girl Scouts, or at least when I was there, with the Silver and Gold Award, is that it's not just one award that you work towards. There's a whole series of years of work that you have to build on to get the award. And so it's not, you have to have stamina and you have to have a plan and you have to stick to it. You can't just give up. So that was a big part of my upbringing is Girl Scout. And then another piece is soccer. I was not very good. Obviously, I got most improved, but it was a low bar to still a semi-low bar. But sports is something that I believe strongly in because it's character development, it's learning to work in a group environment. I mean, it's all those things. And then, of course, family is another pillar of kind of my upbringing that has kind of made me who I am. Wait, what was the question?
What inspired you to take action towards supporting the community?
For the community. So growing up, my mom did a lot of volunteering, and so I would go with her to do what we called the bread run. So we would go to Food Lion and Starbucks and wherever that would have day-old non-perishable goods, and so we would take them to Open Door Ministries. And so that things like that were always a part of my upbringing, and you do whatever you can with what you have. And so as my career has progressed. If you look at my resume, it looks like I can't hold a job. But I would say I'm an opportunist. Just something comes across and I feel like I could I have something to contribute. I sort of jump on it, and that's a little bit of the genesis of Carolina Core FC in a way. But everything that I've done in the past has just been a big part of my upbringing and just how my mom and my dad raised me.
That's a beautiful philosophy to have. You kind of take the opportunity as it comes, and you do what you can with what you have. I think it's interesting to see how sort of structures mirror each other at every level, right? So you have like the home structure that can, when done, when it functions efficiently, it can really be mirrored up to corporations and the community at large. What do you find are the most important components of a successful community?
Oh my gosh. So I'm highly biased about our community here in High Point, about the Triad, about our state. I mean, I love the people that make our community. And I think what makes it function is kind of the idea that everybody does bring what they can. And one of the things I love about our area is that if you want to be a relatively big fish in a relatively small pond and you want to get involved and make a difference, you absolutely can. And there's a place for that. And with what we've been doing here in High Point through soccer, and then the other hat I wear with the Congdon Family Foundation is just how do we reduce barriers to opportunity? How do we get people to a place where they have jobs, that they can afford a really nice house that they purchased from you guys? I mean, how do they go about bettering their lives, and how do we, in everything that we do, how do we create access to opportunity by reducing those barriers? And a lot of it comes down to, yes, you need to have the three basic things. You need to have food, shelter, and clothing. But to have those things, you really need to have a good paying job. And in our state, and especially in this area, when manufacturing went overseas, I mean, that the middle jobs just went away. We have this huge missing middle that we've been slowly trying to rebuild, and we're getting there. I mean, we really are. I mean, North Carolina's been ranked now the number 2 state to do, or number 1 state 2 years in a row to do business. And I think we should be really proud of that, but we have a lot of work to do to keep that. It's still not enough.
Yeah, definitely something to be proud of, but still remembering that there's a lot of work to do, for sure. One of the things that we touch most on here on What Moves Her is mindset and the importance of that. Something that I think is just so fascinating is in our mindset, it's hard for us to go to encourage ourselves and get out of our comfort zone if we don't already feel safe and comfort. So when you're talking about basic needs, you can see how a certain part of the population can feel like they're just stuck because they're still not getting their basic needs. So I love that's like kind of what you're working on to build that foundation. That's awesome. So you are also the second ever female majority owner of a soccer club ever. What are some of the challenges that you have faced to become a female owner?
All right, so this was interesting. I found out this fact. So I'm the second majority female owner in the MLS system, so in Major League Soccer. And I found this out when I was going on, excuse me, one of our first sponsorship call meetings with our chief marketing officer. I hadn't seen the slide deck before we went to the meeting, and he put this slide up where it has, Megan Oglesby, second female owner, and I looked at him, I was like, are you serious? What? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, we'll talk about it later. I was like, so anyway, we did talk about it later, but it wasn't something that I realized. I mean, obviously now taking a step back and looking around, I see it, but it wasn't something that I recognized. So one of the things that has been interesting about working in the philanthropic space and seeing kind of where there's disparities and all that is a lot of it comes down to, yes, it's real, but then there's like giving it power. So being a female, I've never let that be a barrier to what I've done. Like, I haven't given it power. It just is. It is what it is. I work with it. Sometimes it can hinder a few things, but we work with it. So something about me, I was born with a pretty severe hearing loss. I have like a 75-80% loss, and I've worn hearing aids my whole life. And I had to do a lot of speech therapy as a kid, but it was something that my parents never gave it power. It was never a handicap. I never knew it was something that it would hold me back from anything. I was on the swim team, again, not very good. I played soccer. There was a couple of games where the hearing aid got bumped out and everybody had to stop and we had to get on our hands and knees and look for the hearing aid. But I say that to say that, being a female or being a minority or whatever it is, having hearing loss, like if you give it power, it is going to be a barrier. But if you don't give it power, and it's a thing that you work with, and if it becomes a bump, you kind of work around it. Being a female owner, I'm sure will have its challenges. Like, for example, I'm not going to go into the locker room. Like, I just am not going to be one of those owners that just shows up after the game and congratulates the guys in the locker room, because that's a space that I don't think is appropriate. But other than that, I mean, I've been embraced by the executives, by the league. I mean, it's really been, they want us there.
Yeah, that's great. So that reminds me, are there any Mad Men fans in the room? Oh, Mad Men.
The show?
Anybody watch Mad Men, the show? No? Okay. So I'm the only nerd.
I've seen a few episodes.
So there's a scene where one of the actresses that's, mainly in a male-predominant field, she's trying to grow the ranks, and she comes across another female that has done it. And what the advice that the more experienced woman gives her is, don't use what you have. You're a woman. Don't play in their sound box, for another way of saying it. Be you in the best capacity that you can be. So I think it just goes to that of work with what you've got. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So speaking a little bit about collaborating with men in our business world, as everything with mindset, like we were just saying, perspective is everything, right? What does it mean to you to call someone a male business ally?
I remember I got asked that question a couple of years ago, and I never really thought of it that way. I mean, a lot of times when I've always worked in groups, like everything that I've done in all of my different positions and career opportunities have always been a collaborative group environment. And a lot of times it's been a lot of men in those groups. But if I'm ever in a room and I'm the smartest person, I'm in the wrong room. Like, I always want to make sure that whoever is around me is smarter than me, they've got more experience, or if it's somebody with less experience, there's something they bring to the table. And so to get anywhere, I mean, you have to have men and women to work together. And so some of my biggest supporters and some of my mentors have been those male allies, and they're the people. So with the Congdon Family Foundation, the president, David Congdon, when he hired me, I hadn't had any experience in the foundation world. And when he approached me about it, I asked him, "Are you sure? Do you want to hire somebody with more experience?" He said, "No, you'll figure it out." And I was like, "Okay, well," he's like, "You got to figure out your title, whatever." I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just be administrative assistant," because I felt like that's what I was doing. He was like, "Absolutely not." He was like, "You're going to get the title that you deserve, and that when you're in a room, you're going to be given the respect that the position deserves." And because of that, he gave me a title, which was great. I mean, I've earned it now, but at the time I had a little bit of inferiority complex with it. But he made sure that I was at the tables that I need to be at, and the title and I'm not really a title person, but titles do matter, especially if you're looking at a blind email or whatever it is. And so he was really instrumental in making sure that I was presenting myself in a way that the foundation deserved, that would allow us to do the work that we needed to do. And he was truly an ally, where he made sure that if the foundation needed to be represented, he would say, "Megan's going to be there on behalf of us," and just kind of spearheaded along. So he's been an incredible mentor, and I've got tons I can name.
Yeah, to your point that it's nice to have, not nice, but necessary to have that support from the male allies. I mean, this program at Moves Her would not even exist without the support of our leadership men. So it's very important. I have a funny story. So when I was in grammar school, I had to be in the tutoring class. If anybody doesn't know, English is my second language. So I needed tutoring to help my schoolwork, and I was put in a classroom with all boys. And I must have been like 10 or 12 or something like that. And these boys, I would come in there and they would be jumping around. They would just going. I would be in there and sitting there and just like kind of looking at them like, what is wrong with you guys? But to your point of like you need both, right? So we all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and when we can learn to align that together, we can really create a certain type of balance that can help us progress forward. Going back to the point of how things mirror each other at every level, it's also the same in business, right? So you have that go energy from the guys, and then the feminines can bring something different to the table and then really create something successful.
Oh yeah, and it's not just gender diversity. I mean, it's thought diversity, it's style. I mean, when you think about some of the most successful teams that work together, whether it's a team on the field or it's a team in an office, I mean, usually the most diverse groups are the ones that are the most successful because they're looking at things from a different perspective, different communication types. I don't know if you guys have done any kind of self-assessments. There's one that is called 5 Voices, and you have all 5 voice types, but you tend to lead with one, and then you have a secondary. And in order to communicate best, which is when you talk about breakdown and groups and efficiencies, communication is typically the reason. It's just you either don't understand yourself well enough to know how you're projecting or understanding how the other person's coming across, or even to be able to give somebody a space to talk. So I have, shockingly, a really strong dominant voice. I will project my opinions. I don't really care. I mean, I don't really care if somebody disagrees with my opinion. Like, I don't take it personally. But there's certain styles where they're not going to speak up first. And so I recognize when we're in a group that I sometimes need to speak last because I can overpower. And I've only learned that through working through the 5 Voices kind of workshops and in different group environments. And especially being a leader and being in a position of power as the owner of the team, when I come into the office and we're working in a team environment, I have to be sensitive, one, of my communication style, which is very dominant, but then also to my position of power as a leader and as an owner, wanting to be careful that our team feels like they can speak up and it's a safe environment, and I'm not unintentionally trying to mute anybody's voices.
Yeah, I think that can be really powerful when we start to look at ourselves and develop that self-awareness and see what strengths we have and what things we need to work on in order to collaborate in a team.
And it's always a work in progress. I mean, the growth mindset, like I feel like I have to be a learner for life, because as soon as you feel like you know everything,
like technology. Any other advice you have for someone who's struggling to collaborate with a male ally or even discover them in their industry?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I mean, for me, a lot of times I think it comes down to communication, and if there is a person, whether they're male or female, that's just doesn't give you the time of day, I usually just try to find a different avenue.
They're not the person.
Like
They're not
find
your
another person.
Yeah.
Or find somebody who knows that person well to give you an inroads, but I just usually find a different door if that one's not opening.
Nice, I like that. Let's talk about your success as a soccer player. What are
I would call it lack of success, but sure.
What are some of the skills that you learned during that time of your life that you feel helped you progress in your career?
So I would say the year I got most improved, which was my sophomore year. So freshman year I didn't play at all. I was a really good ball girl. It actually was funny. So I went to High Point Central, and David Upchurch, who is he's the head of coaching and president of BTFC and is now Carolina Core FC Youth. He was my varsity soccer coach. And so when I was doing my due diligence to decide if this was a good initiative to take on, I reached out to him and just asked him, because I was like, I didn't know anything about the soccer world. And I got his opinion and his advice, and he was really integral in helping me understand kind of the dynamics, because there's professional soccer and then there's youth soccer, and youth soccer, especially in North Carolina, is complicated and nuanced, and there's all these different levels. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, it's just very interesting. But he was a really great soccer coach varsity year, or varsity for the varsity team. And for my sophomore year, he was really good about just being patient with a team of girls and then also just breaking things down, and when things aren't working, simplify. So we would do like super simple drills that would help us really change the game. So he taught me not to overthink. So you learn a couple of simple things and you stick to it and try not to overthink it and build on that. And then just like as a kid playing soccer, it's a group sport. Like you can have one rock star striker that can get some points on the board, but they can't win the game for you. Like you really have to work as a team. You have to communicate. You have to cover each other. You can't get mad, keep your mouth shut. I learned that. I never got a card because I kept my mouth shut. Now that didn't mean I didn't play a little dirty, but I kept my mouth shut.
Nice.
But yeah, just the teamwork and just having stamina and grit and sticking to it even if you're losing. I mean, there was, I think our junior year, we had a really good team, but we just could not get it together for whatever reason. And we lost a lot of games and it was frustrating, but at the end of the season, we still had a really great celebratory lunch and it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I would think you would have to have some strong discipline to go in every day and practice and do what you need to do. So I'm gonna, Mumu was just telling me a little story about you a little while ago. How when you used to live in her neighborhood, you saved up some money and bought a go-kart and you were driving it in front of your brother.
So that was, I was on a panel for the chamber. They did a nonprofit learning lab, and I was on a panel with a couple of other funders. I was wearing my Condon Foundation hat, and one of the questions the panelists, the facilitator asked was, "What's your favorite childhood toy? Tell us about it." And so the thing that came to mind was this go-kart, and I think I was, what was I, like 12, 10 or 12? Yeah, but the rule was, so my dad, he came from like nothing and he always wanted to give us everything and not make us work for it. And my mom was like, no, they need to work for what they want. Like, we'll take care of their basic needs, but if they want something they don't need, they need to pay for it. So we really wanted go-karts because we had some property out in Davidson County and we really wanted go-karts. And I think they were like $500 at the time, a lot of money. And my parents said, okay, you earn the half of it and then we'll pay the other half. As soon as you earn it and you save it, then we'll go get one. Well, my brother, I love him deeply, but he cannot, I mean, he had a hole in his pocket. He could not save a penny. But I like saved all my money. I did tours around the house and I got to go get my go-kart first. And I remember my brother's older, and I remember he after I got my go-kart, I was so proud of it. It was yellow, double-seater, and he really wanted to drive it. And I was like, no, it's my go-kart. You don't get to drive it. I mean, he finally whined enough that I let him drive it like the second day. But I love that go-kart. I worked so hard to earn that money. I mean, we kept that thing repaired. I put duct tape on it. It was not the best vehicle for a farm. I mean, it was really rough, so I added extra cushion to the seat and all of that. But it was one of those things that I just loved. And then, of course, I did ride down the street and terrorize the neighbors. Sorry, but it was and that was a learning lesson too for growing up, of just like how much more joy you get out of something when you earn it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So having that, again, that discipline.
Yeah, and when I was on that panel, so they asked these questions ahead of time, and then they basically psychoanalyzed us after. And so when he was asking the question about our favorite toy, he's like, and how did that make you feel when you earned that before your brother? I was like, oh, it made me feel so good. I made him jealous. And then I got psychoanalyzed after. I'm like, so what did you learn about Megan? I'm like, well, not good things.
What do you think was your biggest challenge during those years to gain the success that you did?
To get to where we are today with Carolina Core? Oh my gosh. So there was a lot. So one of the reasons why we decided to launch Carolina Core FC is, for me personally, I never wanted to own a soccer team. That was not a goal, nowhere near anything that was on my trajectory. But when the city came up with the Catalyst project to help revitalize downtown High Point and High Point as a whole, which was desperately needed, the first idea was a baseball stadium, which a lot of cities were doing it. It had a good track record. Baseball is an attractive sport to use because it had so many games. I mean, it made a lot of sense, but for me, that was in 2014, 2015. I was a young professional. I didn't have any kids at the time, and I would go to the Greensboro Grasshoppers games a lot because Thirsty Thursday was a great deal and it was so fun. And I was like, why would I come to a game in High Point if Greensboro Grasshoppers has a really great program already going? And so a lot of people sort of had that mentality of there was already baseball, it was saturated. But then the idea kind of morphed into, well, it's going to be multi-sport, multi-purpose, multi-use. It's not just going to be about baseball, because in our community we need to diversify and make sure that is a well thought out asset. And so part of the pitch to the community to get the sport was that we're gonna start with baseball, but we're gonna work on getting soccer too. I was like, okay, well that makes sense. And a lot of people that we talked to thought that made sense. And so they built this really fantastic stadium, and they were so smart when they built it, because they built it with a 90-degree angle in the where the home plate and the first and third come off, because most baseball stadiums I think it's at like a 45-degree angle, so you can fit the rectangle sports into the stadium pretty easily, and it's not like a weird angle. So fast forward to it was fall of 2021. I got invited to a meeting, and it was Brian Gavigan, who's a local attorney here, and he was highly involved with the chamber and all of that. It was a group of these soccer professionals that had just done a couple studies in this area to see if professional soccer could be supported. And what they did is they surveyed families through Fusion and PTFC and other surveyors to find out what kind of support would be around soccer. How much would you spend at a soccer game? How far would you travel? Kind of all those metrics. Super favorable. It was really impressive. And what impressed me the most when I was there, well, one, I didn't really know why I was there, so that was confusing, but I was just listening. And what was really impressive is that there was a couple of guys in the room that had years, decades of sports, soccer industry, business industry. One of them was Andy Smith, and the other one was Evan Mitz, and then a few others. And they were talking about what it takes to have a successful soccer team, a successful launch. I mean, they had the expertise where, in the past, there's been a lot of really great ideas around the community to help uplift everybody, but it was either lacking. There's kind of three things you need to have to make the magic happen. You need to have good leadership, you need to have good vision, and you got to have the resources. And so I feel like in our recent past, we've been missing one of those. And so finally, the leadership piece with these two guys, and one was in Texas and the other one's in Florida. They said, this could really be successful if you guys decide to do it. So fast forward to the second meeting. So I left thinking, well, this is interesting. Somebody's going to bring a soccer team to the Triad. Love it. Second meeting, they're talking about the importance of local ownership and the 9 steps of success and being fully funded and all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, I know why I'm being asked to be at this meeting. They want to tee up David Condon for an ask, because he's the president of our foundation, and he's the chairman of Old Dominion Freight Line. And so I started doing my due diligence, because that's what he'll turn around and ask me what I think. So I started doing my due diligence. And so I got to know Andy Smith, and I got to know Evan Mitz, and really started honing in on what is this. And at the same time, MLS announced that they had just started MLS Next Pro, which is the development league for MLS. And they just announced that they were going to bring in independent clubs. And so that was the point where Andy and Evan said, and they were just consultants on the project at the time, they said, Megan, this is actually a really big deal. If you guys decide to talk about the community, bring a team here, it needs to be independent, because that way you can really lean into the player development, the people development, and you can send your players anywhere. You don't have to send them to just one club. So if you have a goalkeeper that's ready to go and your affiliated club doesn't have a position, you're kind of stuck. So that was really interesting. And then David was super supportive of the idea. He thought it was really good, but he was like, it's too active of an investment. I'm not interested, but if you and a couple of your cousins want to do it, I think you should. And I was like, well, I was bought in. I was like, this is really, if we don't do this, especially if we don't do it in High Point for Truist Point Stadium, who's going to do it? And is this opportunity to get a MLS Next Pro expansion team going to pass us by? We'll never get it again. So I met with Andy and Evan. I said, all right, you guys, how are we going to make this happen? And they said, well, we got to move there. I was like, well, I know a gal, so I gave them some broker's name. Mumu was one of them, and they moved here. And this was before MLS gave us the expansion, because they believed in the project so much. And I recruited Matt Penley and Mark Penley, who were my business partners, and then my first cousins, and then some other local investors who were all fantastic. And we all came together. We went after the expansion team, and MLS came down and they saw our stadium, and they really were impressed by the stadium itself, the people, the plan, the vision, and the fact that it wasn't just about having a soccer team. It was about the development of people, not just the players, but the front office staff. So what's interesting too, so the work that I do through the foundation, one of the things we do is we're talking about career, workforce development, career pathways. And so this is very much in line with that work, is that this is a career pathway for the sports industry. So the sports industry in the US alone is like an $80+ billion industry with over 8 million jobs. I mean, the access to opportunity, if you get into the sports industry, not just as a player, but just all the different positions that support having people on the field, it's a really lucrative industry. But again, access to it is a bit difficult. If you want to get into the sports industry around here, you have to get into baseball or go to the collegiate level, and then you got to move out to start moving up. So this was, for me, it was not about soccer. It was about, this is a career pathway for both our front office and our players. Is access to opportunity, is helping people have a step to a better opportunity. Now, of course, if people want to stay with us for forever, we want them to, but part of our interview process is, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Do you want to stay here and grow with us, or do you have some aspirations up and above us? Like if you want to go to Charlotte FC or wherever, and we go from there and we figure out kind of how we want to grow them and develop them as much as they can while they're with us.
That's awesome. There's such a ripple effect for projects like this. When it starts, like, it's not just the players, it's not just the families that are coming to watch, but it really is the whole community. What I really love about your story is that it's such a good depiction of when we, and even though it wasn't like a big goal for you, but when we have sort of like these big ideas, sometimes you don't know how you're going to get there. And it's an unfolding. It's a trusting process to just take the next step.
Yeah, I think I was naive enough to jump in with 2 feet, and now it keeps growing by the day. And it's really, I remember when I first jumped in, one of our minority investors said, Megan, buckle up. It takes a lot of work and stamina to launch a team. And I was like, I got stamina. I'm fine. And he was right. I mean, it really has been a lot of hard work. And I was just telling someone earlier, it was just a small group of us until really this year, because we couldn't do all the hiring of the players and the technical staff and like our sales team and all of that until the beginning of this year. So it's been 2.5 years of a very small group doing a lot. And now, like, our office has exploded. We have people everywhere. So we've got 30 players under contract now, and they're all professional players. And then we have our technical staff, our front office staff. So we've got right at like 50 or 55 full-time employees. That includes the players, and then on the game day, for game day activation, we'll have kind of a part-time team that will help do that. And then we have our part-time street team. So it takes about 70, 80 people to put 11 people on the field.
Wow.
And we're a very lean operation. So if you think about, that's not even including the stadium operations team either.
Okay.
So it's a lot, but it's really exciting to be a startup from scratch.
Yes. Oh God, and to have it here, it's just, we're all just so excited about it. So coming back full circle, did you ever think, as young Megan, did you ever think that you'd accomplish as much as you did, as you have?
Well, I was a Girl Scout, so of course. So, I don't know. I mean, I consider myself a little bit of an opportunist. I'm very focused and goal-oriented when I'm in something, but then I'm an opportunist when something comes across and decide what I wanted to do. But I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up. Maybe I'll get back into the real estate. We'll see. But I guess I'm proud of myself, if if you're allowed to say that you're proud of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. We like to say that we unapologetically promote ourselves. What moves your group. So when you think of new goals and dreams that you want to achieve in the future, what motivates you and gives you the confidence to keep moving forward?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I just love our city and our state so much. Like, I want everybody to have a full and rich life, whatever that looks like here. And so, the next step is obviously creating jobs within our education. Like, what do we need to do as a state to improve our education system so that we can have a skilled workforce, and our young people, our children who don't have any say in their lives, have a healthy life. So I don't know what that means as far as a goal, but just trying to stay the course of supporting the people that make our community so great.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Megan. It was so lovely to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you guys, and thank you for all your hard work in our community. We appreciate it, and I guess in the whole state, because we have some people from the beach too. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Did anyone have any questions for Megan? Any questions in particular that you wanted to ask her?
I do.
Yes.
So when you talk about when David hired you and you were, put your mindset in that administrative assistant role, when you think about, I'm going to go woman route, right? When you go the female route, what advice would you give a young woman starting out in her career to get out of that mindset, that they're not worth it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but like kind of manifesting, like, and visualizing, like, what do you want to be? How do you want people to perceive you? How do you want to perceive yourself? It's kind of like that question of, like, if you died today, like, what does your obituary say? I don't know. I probably should talk to, Reese is one of our young people in our office. I need to talk to her and see what would be supportive of her. But I think it's just making sure that they know that they have a sense of purpose and they're here for a reason. And if they don't know something, that's okay. Just like ask the question, lean into it. But yeah, and it wasn't like, I didn't say it in a self-deprecating way. I just felt like, I think for us women sometimes too, we want to be perfect at something or like really ready and like feel super sure about something before we jump in, whereas men are like, I'll figure it out. So I'm trying to like sometimes put on I'm going to tell you all this. I've got an alter ego. His name is Richard. So when I'm going into a space sometimes where there's a lot of men and it's like I need to like not be as valley girl as I come across as sometimes, I'm like, all right, I'm going to channel Richard. I'm going to, have the power pose and own the space and just try to be a little bit more firm. I mean, one example too is my kids are still really little. I mean, last night I was up for a while with one of them, and with COVID and childcare and kids getting sick, like I would have to reschedule meetings a lot. And I used to say, I'm so sorry, my kid's sick, or childcare fell through, or whatever. And I felt like I was playing small and like belittling myself. And my husband said to me, he's like, why are you telling people why you need to reschedule? For all they know, you have an important board meeting and you just need to move some things around. And as soon as he said that, I was like, let me try that. So I've just, not in like a aggressive way, but I'm just like, I need to reschedule. Thank you in advance for your understanding. Here's other times I can do. Not once has somebody asked me why I needed to reschedule. And that just for me inside my head has made all the difference, where I felt like I wasn't trying to justify, or I wasn't feeling like I wasn't a full-time working woman because I had these kids. Like, you can do everything and people are pretty understanding. I will say I'm a much more empathetic person having kids. They really humble you in many ways.
Wait till they get older.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, that's what I've heard. Every phase has their challenges. So my oldest is 6 and my twins are 3, and it's interesting. It's a journey.
Going back to what you were saying, I think we are so critical of ourselves, right? And we just got to recognize when that negative voice is hitting in and just be like, nope, I'm not going to listen to you, because it's just not true. I mean, we lie to ourselves all the time. It's just not true.
Oh yeah. Well, and if that's all you hear in your head, of course you're going to have a negative perception. I mean, last year I did not have good boundaries, and I was double booking myself, and it was just a lot. And so I was like, okay, after the first this year, like I've got to make some changes. And one of those things was that negative self-talk, that like saying I'm not doing enough, I'm not showing up enough, I'm not there enough for my kids, I'm not there enough for soccer. I was like, you know what, I just need to set stronger boundaries. And I just had to like rip the Band-Aid off with the negative self-talk. Every time it started creeping up, I was like, no. Richard usually yelled at her.
Okay. Yes, Pamela.
How is the football club football club?
Yes, it's the real football.
Volleyball questions, I'm fine. Like, this is a whole other sport.
Well, and what's interesting is as of 2.5 years ago, I'm just now, like I played the sport as a kid, but like the business of the sport.
Just getting into it.
Yeah. So he was asking me a bunch of questions about the different leagues and stuff, and I was like, oh, where's Andy when I need him?
How how is the club reaching out to maybe some of the universities or even the high school level
Yep.
to kind of look at, I mean, I know the high school level in Guilford County, getting service learning hours is huge.
Yep.
The college level, these are kids, youth that are, young adults that are looking for, career.
Yeah. So for the college level, we've got a lot of interns. We already have a lot of interns right now from the different universities. We actually had an intern that was from New York too, so did some remote work. It was graphic artist intern. So we're engaging them in that way. And we're just kind of getting started, so we're trying to make sure we can get the team launched, but so we have plans in the future to get more integrated. We have adopted the newcomer school at High Point Central, so that's a great fit too. So so there's a couple of ways that we're getting involved with the different schools. One is with our front office staff, and then the others with the players. So the players, as part of their development, need to learn how to engage with the community, and they show up and they will play soccer with some youth kids, or they can, I'm trying to remember what all the different things they can do, but they're encouraged to get involved in the community and then go to the newcomer school. And then we've done some food drives as well. I mean, different things like that. We're certainly trying to get more involved as we can, but we want those schools to be our fans too, and we'll have we were talking about group events at the stadium, so we'll have some group events. I know Guilford County Schools just reached out to us to figure out a partnership there, and then the private schools as well. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah, so there are a lot of really great internship opportunities, and then the street team and the game day operations team will have some paid position opportunities too.
So I know I put you on the spot earlier, so I apologize for that.
It's all good. You had a cute baby, so you're allowed to pass.
But what are the things about soccer or football that is very unique in the sense of what it does as a sport is create a really tight-knit sense of identity as a community. When you think about seeing documentaries like Welcome to Wrexham or Sunderland Till I Die, those people don't look at their team as a minor league team. That is their team. That's their professional team. So as the owner of a team, particularly in the United States, where everything is just based upon owning a franchise versus actually owning a club, what do you feel like as an owner of a local club, pushing off this identity of we're just trying to get these kids to the next level, and actually creating an identity where the community is rallying around and saying Carolina Core is a part of High Point. Like, this is our team, our community. So what do you feel like is a strategy for you as an owner, but also just as a club in general?
Yeah, so one of the things that's interesting, and the other female owner in MLS, she is the St. Louis team owner, and I listened to a podcast with her where she came to the project kind of as a similar position as me, where it was about revitalizing the community through the game of soccer, and she didn't know the business of soccer at all. And one of the things she said is if you look around at all the different clubs, whether it's in the States or international, the most successful clubs are the ones that are truly owned by the community. The community embraces them, they feel it's their own, they have influence, they are engaged. And I really took that to heart because I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And even in the beginning of this, I was trying to figure out how can I help make this team a reality and it not be about me, because that's not what this is. I was like, can I launch this thing and just be in the background? I even tried to convince some other people to just be in the forefront. So it really isn't about the ownership group at all. I mean, we're blessed enough to be able to get this thing off the ground and to fund it. But we want this to be a team of our community. I mean, we named it the Carolina Core FC because it's about this whole core of who we are. And when you're looking at attracting businesses or people to a community, are they really looking at city limits? Maybe, maybe not. But most businesses, especially if you look at the work that's been done through the Piedmont Tribe Partners in the past really decade, they created the Carolina Core, and they had all of these cities come together to attract big businesses like Toyota Battery and Boom Supersonic and all that as a region, because individually we can't move the needle. So they understood that this collaborative group regional mentality is what's going to make us all better. And so when we think about what is Carolina Core FC, it's a soccer team, but it really is so much more. And when somebody feels like when you have an identity to something, it's something you care about, And it's not just about the game itself. Yes, we want to win. Winning is super, super important, but the people behind the club, whether it's the fans or the players or the front office, are all amazing people with their own stories. And at the end of the day, how amazing is it that we can have a party on the pitch, 90 minutes, where there's this one thing that brings us all together despite our differences, and we can leave whatever our opinions are about life and philosophies and politics aside and come, and we may or may not be enemies depending on which team you're rooting for, but it's just a way to rally and have identity. I mean, why are you guys part of Coldwell Banker versus something else? It's something that you identify with, the values align with what you believe in. And at Carolina Core, we really believe in our people. Like, we want them to be a better version of themselves tomorrow, and we can do that by being a collective group. And with just to make a quick note on the logo, we really invested in that because we want it to represent who we are. The red fox is indigenous to this area, but the fox is also really clever. It's adaptive. It's still a predator, but it's not, it's not the top dog. And then, we've got the sunset and the mountains and the colors. I mean, this is who we are. I don't know. There's a lot more to it, but I'll stop there because I feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole. Did that answer your question? Because you're a Manchester fan, right?
No, Chelsea.
Sorry. But why are you a Chelsea fan, right? Like, you're all the way over across the pond, but you still care about that team because it means something else. It's like, it's the history, it's representative, they have soccer philosophies, all this stuff. And they win some games, which is helpful.
We were surprised to know that a lot of the ticket holders are not all from High Point. There's Winston people and Greensboro people, so it's really cool to see the whole triad come together for this.
It is really exciting. So thank you guys for your support. We really appreciate it. And we're not going to have just however many home games. It's not just a home game, it's a party. And it's, where everybody's welcome, especially the kids. I've had a lot of people ask me, is this kid friendly? I'm like, absolutely. And actually, the kids are hilarious. So I'm trying to remember which game it was. There's a couple of kids that they'll take their shirts off and they're whipping them around. I'm like, all right, they're running up and down. It's just so cool to see them get excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Mumu.
By the way, we're going to have the biggest, baddest pre-game on June 1st.
Woo woo! And you'll have the best view. You don't even need to buy a ticket. Well, not quite.
There's some code you can do it around here.
I'm genuinely unaware of this.
That's going to be the most fun day I've ever seen.
Yeah. I will say, you guys have one of the best offices in the Triad, I think.
We do.
So open invitation, at all the home games, there'll be some form of tailgating going on here. So anybody coming from somewhere else, check in here first, see what's happening. Moo will be leading the way.
They'll even take us Greensboro people, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We'll give you a ticket in.
Oh,
Maybe.
And then I always say this wrong, I need to get it right because it's our supporter group name, but the Skulk, which is a group of foxes, that's our supporter group, and they will, I think they're going to do the march down to the stadium down Church Street at 6:30 before the kickoff at 7:30, so y'all will be right in the prime action.
Nice.
That should be really fun.
Nice.
Very good.
But I do want to thank Megan. I mean, I've been here 35 years. She actually grew up to the family. So I remember her as a 4-year-old with the same ponytail. As the brother stood literally. Saying what she said then and that. But you have transformed this. And between your work with the Conduit Foundation, which for those of you who aren't at High Point, funds nonprofits here to allow us to do amazing work for our community. She doesn't just talk the talk of wanting people to have opportunities. She backs it. And you and your family have truly changed our community, and we all owe you a huge thank you.
Thank you again. Go ahead. Are you going to say something? No? Oh. I think I've said enough. All right, thank you guys so much for coming. I'm excited to see you guys around, and thank you for all the work you guys do in your field.